It's gonna hurt my brain. Okay, but it's not gonna hurt my brain as much as the bot, which I absolutely just don't add in my valuation. I just don't do it. It just hurts my brain. So I'm just curious, like as that says there. So, sir, take it away. What do you have for us with the bot?
That sounds good. So on this slide, if I run a factory, let's say I run a big factory in Texas that has the letters TSLA on the roof.
Oh, that's
I don't know
nice.
what this factory makes, but it makes
Yeah.
stuff.
Okay.
I have the following choices of labor. I can employ animals. I can employ humans, number two, or I can employ robots, industrial robots. Now, if this factory makes cars, then number one isn't going to be useful for me. Okay. Number two, okay, humans are pretty good. I'll use humans. But number three is really good, particularly heavy stuff, repetitive stuff. I'll employ industrial robots. Humans can't pick up a car and move it, but an industrial bot can. But I still have to use a lot of humans. And humans have their flaws, right? We quit. We show up late. We get sick. We have all these needs. There's a whole list of things that are the challenge with humans. We might even want to unionize.
Ugh.
And that's what
Yeah.
this picture is showing, right? Is a UAW,
Yeah.
right? And so humans kind of caused some trouble for somebody who's trying to manufacture a bunch of stuff, and rightly or wrongly. I'm not saying that all manufacturing companies, treat their workers well or anything like that, but humans do present some challenges. So what happens now, and if you go to the next slide, what happens now if we have a fourth choice? What happens if we invent a new form of intelligent labor that you can ask it to do something? Go pick up that from the corner and take it across the factory and deliver it over there. It's like having a human that you can instruct in English or whatever language you want and tell them to do something. And the cool thing about bots is they will do it over and over and over again. They don't need to take breaks. They don't need to eat. They don't even need to sleep, right? You just need to charge them every now and then. And we'll go into the list of advantages in a minute. But having the ability to have intelligent robotic labor that you don't have to program, like number three, you've got to program these bots. You've got to tell them exactly what to do, when to do it, and they're actually kind of dangerous to be around. People have been killed working next to these things, and you can see they're in cages, like they keep people out. But the humanoid bots, you, in theory, will eventually be able to work in close proximity to them. This is why I'm so excited about humanoid bots, because we're creating a new form of labor that we have never had before in all of humanity. Now, it's also scary because it can replace us, right? So we'll come back to that, but just from a business owner's perspective, I've got this factory. I now have a new form of labor, and I'm excited about that. So the AI-powered humanoid bots are coming. Don't make any mistake about it. Don't listen to me and say, no, this guy's wrong. It's not going to happen. It's happening.
Yeah.
Okay.
I see it happening.
You may disagree with everything else I say, but trust me, this is coming. And we already have bots today that are doing useful work autonomously. Not at scale, mind you. They still a long ways to go, but these bots exist and they're doing work and they're improving rapidly.
I think Amazon has about 70,000 robots working in their factories.
750,000 robots moving stuff around on predetermined routes. So they're not AI powered, intelligent bots yet.
Yeah, they're just normal bots, but that's 750,000. That's insane.
Amazon will soon have more robots than people working in their distribution centers.
That's crazy.
This page visually shows you some of the bot players. If you go to the next page, we're tracking right now 28 companies that we have listed on this page. At various stages of development, we're trying to show kind of where they are in their development. Are they able to walk? Do they have hands? Are they demoing useful work? Have they integrated a large language model and voice? Has that been integrated into the bot? Can they do autonomous work? Have they announced pilots? And then the last column, deploying bots. And you can see right now that's blank. But these companies are progressing rapidly. I'm adding more to the list all the time. There's another 3 or 4 companies that we're looking at that will probably soon be added. And then these ones on this list are getting more and more of these boxes filled in over time. The red section are the Chinese companies.
I was about to ask that, yeah.
Okay. The blue section at the top is US, Canada. The darker blue is Europe. Okay. Boston Dynamics is a different color. It's in the US, but it's owned by Hyundai. Menti Robotics is an Israeli company, gets its own color. And at the bottom, Toyota Research. There will be more companies. There'll be French companies. There'll be Spanish, Italian, Korean, Japanese, etc. So this list will get bigger. I have said that this is an imperative for every single country in the world to figure out their bot strategy. The reason is this, is that today an economy is made up of labor and the productivity of the labor. The labor forces of a country are driven by demographics for the most part. Some of it's immigration, but demographics. But if you're to have a baby today, it takes 20 years for that baby to become a productive member of society.
Yeah.
Unless you're, into child labor, but 20 years by and large.
Okay.
And the productivity of that person is driven by their education, the tools and the machinery and the equipment and the computers that you have available to them. But a humanoid bot, you make it, you bump up your labor force instantly, and also the productivity of that labor force gets correspondingly bumped up. So GDP, as we measure it, which is labor times productivity, has the ability to do a step change with bots. And if countries are at economic, war with each other, they all need to make sure that they have access to this new technology. They should all be trying to foster the development. They should all be trying to get bot manufacturing in their country. Because if they don't, they could find themselves left behind very quickly. It's also the case for a company, Walmart versus Amazon. If Amazon gets bots and Walmart doesn't, Walmart's going to find themselves at a massive disadvantage, right? Because Amazon either can, by reducing their costs, can make more profits, or reduce their prices to their customers and be even more competitive and put Walmart out of business over time, right? And maybe a combination of both. Amazon enjoys more profits and they become more competitive. That hurts their competition. So this is something that, whether CEOs of companies recognize it today or not, they're in a race for their survival, right? And I know maybe I sound crazy saying this now, but this will happen very quickly.
I think it was Jensen, CEO of NVIDIA. He's like 2-3 years, we'll have big breakthroughs in robotics and bots. And Elon has completely shifted. Like he doesn't even talk about cars anymore, about Tesla. He talks about robo-taxis and more about the bot now. And it blows my mind. That's why I got you here trying to explain this to me.
Yeah. So let's go to the next page and maybe hit on some of the questions. Which questions of these are top of mind for you?
Why do we need humanoid robots? Well, we can see why. What are the advantages of bots? I think almost everything. In the long term, there's a lot of advantages. What is useful work? What is the market opportunity for bots? How many bots can be made? I was talking about like 100. A crazy number. How much will it take to cost to make a bot? It looks like it's going to be in the low 10,000s, as Elon mentioned. How much will it cost to use a bot? That's a good question. How much will it cost a bot? Cost to use a bot? What might the business model look like? What might the bot industry be worth? There's a lot of good questions here. I would say number 4, number 7, and 9. Yeah, so 4, 7, 8, and 9 seems to be very interesting questions.
Okay. Let's hit on all of them, but we'll make sure that we cover 4, 6, 8, and 9 more detailed. So if you go to the next page. So as it stands today, there's actually a shortage of labor in the world. So we don't actually need to worry about people losing their jobs to bots just yet.
Okay.
Okay. So initially with bot deployments, it'll be to cover areas where, there aren't humans who want to do the dirty, dangerous, repetitive jobs. Okay. And that's great. People are going to be really happy about that. Oh, the boss is no longer asking me to go clean up the furnace. We'll send the bot in to do it. Whatever it is. That's one thing. And the second slide here too is, a lot of people lose their lives at work. And so anything that can be done to mitigate this, it's kind of like the robotaxi opportunity of people not dying on the roadways. This is similar. We can use bots to reduce this. This is great. It's a massive savings to society. Another thing for companies, worker turnover is very costly, right? So Walmart, for example, to use them again, their turnover is about 44% per year.
Wow.
It costs them, $4 billion on employee training and development, for example. Like these companies are spending a ton of money just to keep their workforces in place. So having a certain number of bots may help alleviate the turnover because maybe people feel like they're doing more meaningful work, or it may just mean that they don't have as much turnover to deal with, and so they've got a constant workforce they can rely on in bots, and the turnover is not as difficult for them.
I mean, FedEx turnover rate 102%. That must be a living nightmare for HR.
Yeah. And of course, FedEx, as you can imagine, has a peak time of year at the end of the year around the holidays.
Yeah.
That's really challenging for them to stop up as well. And then finally on this topic, employee theft and fraud cost companies a lot of money as well. The average dishonest retail employee, for example, costs the company $1,500 a year. But anyway, there's all kinds of challenges that you can imagine from employees trying to, steal or do something
all
bad.
These human behavior things.
Yeah, and this issue of time theft, $400 billion costly in time theft. People not working the hours they said they were.
That's true. That's so true.
So here's short list, all the advantages of humanoid robots versus people. We've discussed some of them. There's a whole bunch more on this list, and there's a whole bunch more that are not on the list. But if you can have a workforce that is humanoid bots, you solve a lot of problems and reduce a lot of costs. We just discussed some of the benefits, but there's a lot more. You don't need the drug test bots. You don't need parking spaces for them. You don't need to do management reviews. They don't fight with other employees. They don't go on strike. They don't steal from you, right? They don't just disappear and not show up for work. Like all these advantages that we can see.
Okay. And then some, of course. Yeah.
And then some. Perhaps we don't need to spend so much time on here, but there's this concept of useful work. And a lot of people say, well, we're not going to see bots in the workplace because they just can't do X, Y, and Z. And the answer is no, we're going to see them sooner rather than later, because useful work is, it's pretty easy to get a bot to do useful work. And so Scott Walter has talked about that here, and I'll just leave this here if people can read this if they want. But bots are already showing that they can do useful work. Even moving something from A to B is useful work in a manufacturing environment, or in a warehouse. Yeah,
I think Tesla they said they have a few of them already working now. In the Fremont factory. Two of them.
Yep.
2 working now, and then Elon said end of next year, about 1,000, which is just...
And then rapidly scale up from there.
That's just
so
amazing.
How big is this opportunity? Let's look at it this way. The oil industry consumes about 100 million barrels a day. Not the oil industry. The world consumes 100 million barrels per day. And if those barrels are priced at $75 a barrel, the value of all the oil consumed in a day in the world is 7.5 billion. And the oil industry has revenue of about 19 billion. So the oil industry is not just selling crude oil, there's chemicals and other refined products. So the oil industry is a $19 billion revenue business per day. Now, the global labor market is even bigger. If there are 3.5 billion workers in the world and the average wage per day is $30, the value of all the labor in the world per day is $105 billion. It's 5.5 times bigger than the oil industry. Okay, so this is why bots are so exciting, because labor is one of the biggest markets in the world, right? 3.5 billion people working, right?
Yeah.
Earning some money, and there's different wage rates around the world. Some are less than this, some are far more than this. But it's such a massive opportunity. The physical labor market is huge. Now, I would also say that it's not just limited to Earth in the long run. Robotaxi, we're probably not going to be driving many vehicles on the moon or Mars, but we could deploy bots there. So ultimately, there's no cap on the number of bots that could be deployed long term. Let's forget about that. But I just wanted to mention that the off-Earth uses will be present one day as well with bots.
Yeah, okay. I think before I think Elon's plan is when he goes to Mars or something like that, take the bots there first, and then kind of like have a fleet of bots, program it from here, like just something in that world. First things first, bots go there. They have a set of tasks to do, and then later we can send humans there, whatever what that needs to be done. Bots Big ideas, it's just crazy. Yeah.
Bots don't need life support. They don't need food. They don't need a whole bunch of stuff that humans need.
They just need energy.
Yeah. Now, on this slide, if we say, for example, that, the Chinese are going to not allow our bots in their market, or, there's other markets that are too small, like India, they can't afford bots, which is silly to say, but just to say we're only looking at an opportunity in the Western world, which I'm defining here as US, Europe, Japan, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Okay.
Developed countries, pretty much.
Yeah, and there's more on this list, but this is just a quick way to look at it. The labor share versus oil is about over 9 times as big. So it's even bigger as relative to the amount of oil consumed. This is a big market. Okay, how many bots will be made each year? So there's a number of different ways of looking at this. One is we can look at how many autos are made every year. And the largest auto companies make, say 10 to 11 million vehicles a year. And the auto industry collectively makes about 70 to 80 million a year. Okay? If we adjust for the weight difference in an automobile versus a bot, okay, if we assume that weight is the key thing, right? Cars are heavy, bots only weigh about 3% of the weight of a car. So 70 to 80 million cars, it was about 2.5 billion bots a year. If all these automakers switched from making cars to bots, in theory, based on weight, they would be able to make 2.5 billion bots a year. Now, clearly, there's other factors. It's not just weight, but this, I think, is still instructive. The cell phone industry on the bottom half of the page, Apple sells about 200 million iPhones each year. Samsung sells about 225 million. The industry sells about 1.3 billion devices per year. Massive industry. Now, adjusting for weight there, the industry makes about 13 million bot equivalent. So clearly weight isn't the issue. It's more about demand, right? There's a certain demand for phones. So the industry makes 1.3 billion of them. there's a certain demand for vehicles, and so the industry is scaled up to that demand level and makes 70 to 80 million of them. So it's not about weight, it's about demand. How big does the industry need to be? And so this is where we try to answer the question of, well, how many bots do we need, right? And I don't think we know yet, but Elon has said that we might need 2 to 3 to 4 times as many bots as humans. Now, he hasn't articulated the reasons for that, but he said that now a few times.
One part that I'm not understanding on this chart is the weight difference. That's about two, like for example, for the auto part, adjusting for the weight difference, that's about 2.5 billion bots equivalents.
Yeah.
How did you how'd you get 2.5 billion bots? Like this
70 to 80 million divided by 0.03, so 3%.
3%.
Right? If a bot is only 3% of the weight of a car,
okay,
right, and so therefore you should be able to make then adjusting for that weight, it adjusts to 2.5 billion bots. Maybe the next page will make it a little clearer for you. So
let's see.
The total weight of a bot, let's say of Optimus, is about 120 pounds, 54 kilos. The weight of a Model 3 is 4,000 pounds.
I see where you're coming from now.
So
okay.
When you build a car, you've got to move all that mass through your factory. It's a big deal to move cars through a factory, right?
Yeah.
And you've got to have giga presses making the parts and stamping presses, stamping out doors and stuff. With a bot, you don't have to do that. The mass isn't nearly as big. So in theory, you should be able to make a lot more of them, right? If you were to build a bot gigafactory, you should be able to pump out a lot more bots than you do cars.
I get it now.
The cost of a Model 3, let's say, is $30,000, and we think the cost of a bot might be, $8,000 to $10,000. So it's 3% of the weight and about 30% of the cost. And here are the different components that go into the bots. And so the biggest part you can see is the actuators, the motors that make everything move. And so, that's costly. But as the industry scales, the cost of those things will come way down. These are Scott Walter's numbers. There's others that have made projections in a similar range. Let's try to answer the question about how much will bots cost? Not to make, but to use. Again, I'm the guy in Texas with the big factory. I have people working for me, and depending on their skill level, I pay them a certain amount per hour. Let's just say there's no minimum wage. So I've got somebody who's really young and isn't that skilled. I pay them $5 an hour. Because of benefits and the payroll taxes I have to pay, it effectively costs me $7.28 an hour in the US. At $10 an hour, it effectively costs me close to 15. At 20, it's close to 29. At 40, it's close to 60. Okay? The red showing the benefits and the extra costs above the wage rate. You go to the next page. Let's compare that with the cost of a humanoid bot. I'll show you how I get these numbers in a minute, or we can talk about it in more detail. But let's just say, for example, the cost of the humanoid bot for somebody who does a job that gets paid $5 an hour, right? So I'm using the wage rate as a proxy for how skilled the bot is, or how skilled the employee is, right? I paid more skilled employees more money per hour. So let's start on the left side of this chart. If you're doing tasks that are only worth $5 an hour, it's going to cost me $7.28 effectively for a human, and a bot, it'll cost $3.80, depending on the assumptions I used here. So what I'm showing is as the bots gain skills and can do the work that human workers get paid $10, $15, $20, and $40 an hour for, the factory owner should be willing to pay more for the bot per hour as well. And they would still save money. You can see that at $40 an hour work, the bot would cost them $16.60 an hour, whereas the human employee would have cost them almost $58 an hour, right? I would be happy to pay for a bot $16.60 if it could do the work of somebody that I pay $58 an hour for. So what's interesting is this page. My savings, my realized hourly savings by using a bot is very similar to the wage rate of the human, okay? So let's just go to the middle of the chart, $15 an hour. That's my wage rate for humans. My realized savings, the cost between a human and my bot cost is $14 an hour. I would be crazy not to use the bot because I'm saving so much money. Okay, now this assumes that the bot is capable of doing the same work that a human can do. And maybe today that's a stretch. But you know what? The bots never sleep, right? They can work 7,000 hours a year. A human cannot work anywhere near 7,000 hours a year. We work close to 2,000 hours a year. So the bot has a 3.5 to 1 advantage over a human. So even if the bot's a little slower, we can make it up because while we sleep or we're taking a break or whatever, the bots can still work. How did I arrive at these numbers? If you go to the next page, what I assumed in calculating these numbers is, let's say I'm putting my Tesla hat on now and say, okay, we built the bot. How much do we charge people for this? Let's focus on the $15 an hour. If I have a human doing that work, I'm going to pay $15 an hour plus the extra benefits, right? I can calculate how much it would cost me over, let's say, I think I used a 5 or 10 year time. It does not show on this chart, but let's say it's over 5 years. I can calculate how much it's going to cost to pay the human for 5 years doing this work.
Savings is massive.
right? And I say, okay, let's price the bot so that we share 50-50 in the savings with the company that we're selling the bot to. The present value of the savings is $615,000 a year. Tesla's going to keep half of that, and therefore the bot price is $307,000. If I'm the company buying the bot for $307,000, that's how much I'm going to save over the next 5 years. Does that concept make sense in terms of how I arrived at pricing the bots? It's based on the savings to the customer, and Tesla saying, we'll split that savings to you 50-50, and therefore here's the price.
Okay, so then, so how you did it was like Tesla doesn't have a price for it. It'll just be individually priced differently for every company that they decide to sell at a mass rate to them.
Well, maybe, but I'm just saying conceptually in terms of how do I arrive at what the bot's price would be? I'm calculating how much the bot could save, right? Because the bot, you don't have those extra costs. You just like, I have certain assumptions for how much the bots cost to make and then maintain versus the cost of humans to pay per hour plus the benefits. And I can calculate the savings. And that's that, at $15 an hour, it's about 14 something an hour in savings by using bots, right? And then I say, okay, I take those savings and the bot lasts, let's say, for 5 years. I calculate that out, and the company could save $615,000 if they didn't have to pay anything for the bot. Therefore, Tesla, I'm going to keep half of that, and the company will give you half of those savings.
Okay. I got it.
Now, we've heard from one of the bot makers now that they are pricing the bot at the same level as human wages. So it's even higher than this. But I'm trying to be conservative here in my assumptions, and I'm still getting crazy numbers. I don't think that Tesla will sell bots, although I had a little convo with Elon recently, and he confirmed this past weekend that they will both sell them and offer them for rent. But on the next page, what I'm trying to do is figure out, based on those previous prices, here's what the monthly rental cost would be for a bot. Okay, these are the implied subscription prices. So at $15 an hour work, the bot would cost me about $26.50 a month. Now, if you put your consumer hat on, you may say, I'm not going to pay $2,600 a month for a bot. I can't afford that. No, you're not. But if I'm running a company with a manufacturing line, absolutely I would pay this because I'm going to save $307,000 over the lifetime of the bot or over a 5-year period, for example. Consumers are competing against businesses for these things. And the bots are far more valuable to a business than they are to a consumer, right? Unless money's no object for you, you're going to pass. So this is not a consumer product from day one. This is a product designed for businesses to help them with their labor costs. Now, eventually, this will be a consumer product, right? And as Elon talks, we'll have one in our homes or 2 or 3 or whatever. But initially, and for a long time, I think these bots will go into companies, manufacturing lines, warehouses, factories. That's where they're most needed.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, I definitely see that.
We've discussed this earlier, but I view bots as a call option on the survival of a business. If you don't have access to this new low-cost labor force, your business will be at a competitive disadvantage. And if you don't deploy these bots, you will fail because your competition will, right? What happens if UPS deploys bots and FedEx doesn't? What happens if Amazon deploys them and Walmart doesn't? And what I've suggested is these bots will be in such short supply that the CEO of Walmart should be calling Elon Musk and saying, I want to be your first customer because I understand the value of being first versus my competition. Because if I have to wait 5 years to get these things, it's too late.
Well, yeah, cost. For example, like an item of yours that you like or you want to, just price competition is going to be drastically lower.
So I did a quick example of that actually for Walmart, Target, and Kroger on the next page. Now, this is maybe a bit extreme, but just to illustrate the point. Walmart, let's just talk about Walmart. 2.3 million employees, average wage rate, let's say, is $15 an hour. Their effective wage is close to 22. It costs them $100 billion a year in labor costs. Let's say they can replace a third of those. 35% of them in their warehouses, distribution centers, restocking shelves, whatever. Walmart has, remember, they have 44% turnover, so they have to replace a lot of workers every year. Okay, so there's 805,000 workers that are just going to turn over. You don't need to replace them one for a bot because the bot, again, can work 7,000 hours and the worker only 2,000. So you only need one bot for every 3.5 people. So instead of buying 805,000 bots, you only need 230,000 of them, okay? Your annual labor savings would be $23 billion. Walmart's, the last time I did this, and it's a few months ago, their trailing 12 months of pre-tax income was $23 billion. They could double their profits by buying 230,000 bots. The caveat to this is they can't do this today. The bots are not capable yet, but I'm just showing that eventually when the bot capability is there, these companies will have every financial incentive to deploy them to their maximum extent because of this reason. The economics are so compelling for them.
Yeah, it would be stupid not to do it.
It would be stupid not to do it. And the same math works out to Target, to Kroger. I've run the numbers for UPS and FedEx and Amazon. It's the same opportunity for all of them.
Wow. So something just crossed my mind is that if this, well, I think this is looking to be inevitable. It's going to happen. It's a matter of when. Will we see a few years or 3-4 years of just people getting laid off because they're just getting replaced with a bot? Because that's going to be crazy. Like all of a sudden, Walmart takes delivery of this many thousand bots. Amazon takes delivery of this many thousand bots. And next thing you know, it's like, hey, I'm getting these bots to replace this person or that person because they can do their job better than him, better than them. So will we see a crisis of just employees getting fired by these companies because they no longer need them?
Well, initially we have a shortage of workers, so no.
Okay.
The turnover of these companies is already high enough that you don't have to fire anybody. They're leaving anyway. You just replace them with a bot and don't hire a human. But to your point, eventually, if these bots truly become as capable as we think they will be, right? Intelligent, autonomous devices that can do all the work that a human can do that's physical, then yes, why would you hire a human when you can use a bot for, much less? And my bot pricing here in my models actually initially is very high, but I believe over time it'll become very, very cheap to deploy bots, $1 or $2 per hour effectively.
God.
Right. And then at that point, it makes sense for you and I to have one in our homes.
Oh, yeah. At that point, yeah.
Right. Why not?
I'm not too sure. I don't think but I'm here in Kuwait. And every family who is the local, I'm not a local here, but locals who are Kuwaitis, each of them, they have like 1 or 2 or 3 maids that cooks for them, that cleans their laundry, cleans the everything.
Yep.
It's like it's a maid. They do everything for them, take care of the kids. And it is cheap. It's like if I could just make a quick but quick conversions from Kuwaiti dinars to US dollars, about maybe every month we pay these maids maybe $400 a month. Mm-hmm. But to them, it's a lot of money because they just convert it right back to the Philippines or India, right? Yeah. So if it could be cheaper than that, I mean... Oh my God, that's going to be crazy.
And I think that's a really good example because in, let's say, the Western world, you don't need it to be cheaper than that. That would be an amazing price.
Yeah. And like in the West, it's like, hey, like it's not a thing. It's not a culture thing that to have, maids coming, or if you want to have a maid, you got to pay a lot of money for that.
Right.
So if you can have a bot to do that, then hey man, I would pay for it because the convenience here, because my parents have a maid here as well. The convenience here, it's like, oh man, I don't have to like clean my room. I don't have to like do my bed, cook, anything. It's just, I know it's going to get done by the end of the day. Coming out from that, I'll be traveling 2 weeks into Toronto. I have to do all that myself because I don't have. So it's like, darn it.
Yeah. And I think, so you know firsthand what life is like without that, what you're missing.
Yeah.
A lot of people, let's say in the United States, don't have that. They don't know what they're missing, and they can't really imagine what life would be like if they had the help.
Oh, yeah.
But very quickly, people would figure it out, and they would say, okay, it's only going to cost me this much a month to get all these things done. I'm crazy not to. It frees up my time. I can go do something else, right?
It's such a good time saver. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Let's take the next step then and look at kind of what the potential is. I've got Chris Camillo on here. He's also on X, posting various things about bots. He did a model on bots some time ago, and I compared his with mine. So that's what this chart is showing. Nice. And he's talking about Tesla deploying 1.5 million bots by 2030. And he's got a bot price an hour of $16.80 an hour. And he has his reasons for those numbers. And in my model, I had $8.50 an hour. Okay, so a little bit lower. He had bot revenue per year of $95,000, and mine is $60,000. Again, these are bots going into restaurants, factories, businesses of all sorts. He's got different costs of his bot, but the long and short of it is that he's got profit per bot of 84,000, and my profit per bot is about 47,000. Recall from our robotaxi model that the 5-year robotaxi profit was about 50,000. This is 47,000 per year. So remember when I said I'm excited about robotaxi, but even more excited about bots? This is the reason. Bots can make, on a per unit basis, more money than a vehicle can, and the market opportunity for bots is much bigger than the market opportunity for vehicles. We might get 100 million robotaxis, we can get over 1 billion bots. So it's kind of like 50x the opportunity, something like that, depending on, this is long term. This is not 2030. We're just talking 2030 here, 1.5 million bots. Okay, so let's just stick with this numbers instead of getting carried away. He gets to a Tesla Optimus valuation of 10 trillion just on the back of 1.5 million bots deployed, and my valuation was like 7 trillion. Yeah. And I joke, what's 3 trillion among friends? It's it's nothing.
It's crazy that you're giving it 100 PE, because that's going to be crazy. Like, the company's going to be worth, like, let's say, for example, 7 trillion, but then it has a PE of 100, which is, it just tells you the growth of it.
Yeah. And I'm using such a high PE because if they're deploying 1.5 million bots, then it's telling you that 15 million's coming, and eventually 150 million's coming, and maybe 1.5 billion's coming. So the PE multiple should be very high in those early years. Now, in the later years, I think 850 an hour is too high. It's going to come down. Absolutely. Right? Because people say, oh, what about competition? You're not factoring in competition. No, I think this will be a very competitive market. But still, how much are these bots going to make? Even at $1 or $2 or $3 an hour, extremely attractive long-term opportunity. If we look at the next page, and again, if you recall from the robotaxi example, we were looking at net margins of low 40s. We're looking at
high 60
to 70%.
Well, yeah, this becomes. I mean, it'll be the same as a software as a service, right? I'm sure there'll be some programs that Tesla will have. I don't even know at this point that you could just purchase through the bot, pay monthly. Like, if you wanted to run, you got to pay for that. If you wanted to cook your food, you got to pay for that. Like, I don't know. It's just endless when you think about it. What could this subscription could be, and all that kind of stuff. It's just my brain.
And we're not even layering on other revenue opportunities here, right? Like we did with robotaxi. Conceivably, there are lots of other revenue opportunities associated with Optimus. So, for example, if I have Optimus and I can talk to my robot, and it can talk to me, I can have a conversation with it, then the robot becomes a computing platform, right? I don't necessarily need an iPhone anymore, although you're not going to necessarily be always next to your bot. But this in your home, the bot can replace what you use a computer and an iPhone for, and it becomes your agent. You can say, hey, I'm hungry, please order me my favorite Italian food. And it knows what I like. It knows what what I've ordered before. It just does it. So again, there's revenue opportunities associated with some of those services that you could ask the bot to do for you, potentially. I don't know. I haven't included it in my models, but I'm just saying that there could be some other things associated with it. There's also, by the way, distributed inference on the bot. When the bot is just sitting around doing nothing, you can use the computer in the bot for distributed inference too. Now, it's half the size that's in the Tesla car, right? So maybe the revenue per bot is about half of what you get from a car, but still, that could be something. Let's dream a little bit. When there's 150 million bots in service, which again is not that huge, that's the green numbers in the middle of the page. I'm looking at industry potential here at $5 an hour or $3 an hour on the right side. I get an industry valuation of 240 trillion to 450 trillion.
So here's the part that boggles my mind. Industry valuation trillion. Like, is there enough money supply to even justify these numbers?
Yeah. So again, let's go back to our GDP equation. First of all, the first pushback I get, well, our economy is not that big. The global economy is 100 trillion. And you're saying there's a market value of 200 trillion. How is this even possible? Where's the money? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
GDP is simply a calculation of labor times productivity. So if we massively increase labor at, let's say, the same productivity as a human, GDP goes up too. There's no constraint on GDP. It's just a calculation of labor times the productivity of the labor. If these bots are productive, producing things, then GDP goes up by a step change. Money is something that we just create.
That's
so
true.
We will create enough money to support whatever economic activity there is in the world, right? So it's not about the constraint being, oh, GDP can't go that fast, or we don't have enough money. The constraint is the technology, not those other things. The constraint also, to bring up an earlier point you made, is society's acceptance and adaptation to using bots as a form of labor. There may be a lot of resistance. People may say, how is this going to work? I've lost my job, or I quit my job and now I can't find a job because they're using bots instead of humans. I can't live anymore. And so there's going to be some societal adjustments that we don't have the answers for yet. But on paper, we're going to have an abundance like we never had before because these bots do the workforce at such low cost. And Elon talked about this again today, that we're going to have,
I read that.
Universal high income, not universal basic income, but universal high income.
High income.
And maybe
it's the only way.
part 4, maybe he, expands on his thinking on this a bit more, right? But from a mathematical standpoint, I can see that the bots are going to be able to produce whatever we need them to produce at a very low cost because we've reduced the cost of labor. Now, ideally, you and I get to own a fleet of bots and we make income that way, right? And maybe that's the opportunity for humans, is that we'll all get some bots that create value and income for us. I don't know. These are unanswered questions at this point.
Yeah, this is the unknown.
But assuming we can navigate the political aspect of all this, that bots do have the potential of creating an abundance that we can scarcely dream of today.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's just crazy.
It's nutty, and for me to even say these words is nutty. And when Elon tweeted out that he thought we could have 2 to 3 to 4 times human population in bots, and I ran those numbers, and I made the mistake of making a post on X, you get to an industry value in the quadrillions, you run the risk of losing any credibility. But I'm just running the numbers. It's just a spreadsheet.
Yeah, it's just what could act. I mean, this is just a model. Like Elon said, if they're looking, and it's just not Elon saying it. It's other guys in the AI space saying it, that, hey, look, if this bot actually happens and all the labor costs go low, you're looking at this at mass scale, because okay, maybe the consumer doesn't want one, but companies want one, because they're going to save a whole bunch, and eventually it's going to make its way to your house, and then you want one, and then everybody wants one, because it's just convenient. And the next thing you know, before you know it, everything is all bots now, and because it makes life so much better. It makes life more productive for you.
Anything that we can do to make humanity more productive is a good thing.
Yes.
It's just navigating the societal changes around that.
Yep. And this bot thing is exactly doing that. But that's crazy. 450 trillion.
And I don't know what Tesla's market share would be of this. You assign whatever percentage you want. Let's say they have a 10% market share, then you're looking at a $24 trillion company at 150 million bots deployed. And again, I think that is still kind of getting started, right? 150 million is not the cap here. And now if you go to the next page, here's kind of some
There we
It's not
go.
a projection for global bot deployments, but you can see in 2024, maybe there's 10 deployed in the world. Okay, maybe 2 by Tesla and 8 somewhere else, whatever the number is. Okay, and then it's 100 the next year. Okay, and then by 2026, you get to 10,000 deployed in the world. Small number. Okay, and then 100,000. Again, not crazy. 2028, 600,000. We're starting to get some production ramped up. 1.5 million, 5 million, 10 million, 20 million by 2031. Okay, and then we've got production facilities ramping up, and in the mid 2030s, you've got production going through the roof because we've figured this out. I think the 1.5 billion may have come from Elon. He's saying in terms of the industry might be able to produce 1.5 billion bots a year. Okay.
Yeah, it was between like 1 or 1.5, something like that.
Yeah. So this is kind of a potential pathway to get there. And again, I'm not projecting big numbers early on, but Elon has said that they'll scale this thing aggressively as they can, right?
But the question is, are they going to, like, I'm just so curious. I don't know if I mean, I would want to know your thoughts if you would have any idea. Where would they build these bots? Like, will it be in the current factories? Will they have to make a new factory to make that? Like that's also another question of mine. It's just like, will you have a different assembly line to make these bots? Would you have a whole new factory plant to make these bots? I mean, they're already making it apparently in Texas. So
yeah, my perspective is that you don't need gigafactories to make bots. You could make them in a factory in a smaller footprint and still get a pretty good economy of scale. Factories making, say, 1 million of these things a year, but you might want quite a few factories of these around the world. And again, I think a lot of countries are going to want a bot factory in their country, right? If I'm Canada, I want a bot factory in Canada. If I'm France, I want a bot factory in France. If I'm Indonesia, I want a bot. So there could be bot factories all around the world.
But
and I think that would make sense once they get this thing figured out. That's probably in the early 2030s that starts to happen.
It's going to be a crazy time to witness that bot factory.
Anyway, this is another illustration of, potential number of bots deployed over time, taking the numbers from the previous chart, taking the hourly bot rate from $20 down to $3. So there's deflation in the cost of the bot per hour. You can see the industry revenue goes up to 31 trillion. Okay, if the bots are working 7,000 hours a year, the industry profit at the net margin by 2040 is 16 trillion a year. And the PE by then has come way down from 200 down to 36. And the industry market value is $500+ trillion.
Half a quadrillion. That's crazy. Wow.
So feel free to adjust these numbers any way you want. Again, it's just math. It's just a spreadsheet.
Not financial advice, guys. Just
not financial advice.
Just model the model of how things may happen.
We don't know if Tesla will be successful. We don't know if they'll be, have any kind of market share. They may have 1% of the market for all we know. We don't know any of that stuff yet.
Yeah.
my message to your viewers is this is coming. Don't know what these numbers are. Here's an illustration to give you some sense as to what could happen. Again, I'm not wedded to these numbers. I'm not making a prediction here. I'm just showing you, here's the potential growth of this industry. And I believe it'll be the biggest industry in the world fairly quickly.
I have to agree with that too.
Okay. And then just showing how the PE ratio comes down with the hourly rate of the bots. Bots will bring on serious deflation, which is great for consumers because everything that the bots then produce, the cost comes down on that too. So as the cost of the bots come down, they get deployed. All these companies save money. They can supply their goods and services for less money. That helps consumers. So if consumer incomes are pressured, if they come down, that may be offset by the deflation of the things that consumers buy.
And you know what's crazy? This will be made, like things will be made in the US and Western worlds at these prices, at these labor cost prices, meaning that if somehow China can't bring these prices even lower, then you don't need to, manufacturers don't really need to be all in China unless they could bring it even below like $1. But I don't know how they would do that. This will remove one huge geopolitical risk if this actually happens. Like if this actually happens, yeah.
Those are really good points. The idea of comparative advantage kind of goes away as an economic idea because you have to marry that with like economic security, and to build bots in your country and make everything that you need from your country is a good thing. We learned the lesson in COVID that outsourcing masks and medical equipment to China may not be a great idea because you may not get what you need, right? Or whatever the product is. And so economic security means that you want to make as much as possible of the critical things in your country. Computer chips is another example. Now, we don't have a solution for that yet, but it highlights the risks of using comparative advantage. Yes, you can make chips cheap in Taiwan and cheap in China and other places, but there are times when there's a risk to doing that. Bots will allow us to make more things locally at a very competitive rate. Yep. So there's a bunch of other charts here. We don't need to go through each one necessarily slide by slide. They're a bit repetitive at this point. If you want to skip ahead to the next chart, that one, I guess, yeah. So I did 4 different illustrations here: a slow start, slow ramp, slow start, fast ramp, fast start, slow ramp, fast start, fast ramp. Okay. Just to show what it could look like in different scenarios. And you can see that we get to industry valuations of between 260 trillion to 450 trillion by 2040. And you know what? I don't care about the differences between these 4 scenarios. They all get us to functionally the same place. It's a massive, massive industry, right? But the differences in 2030 are significant. If it's a slow start, slow ramp, it's $1 trillion industry versus 150 trillion if it's a fast start, fast ramp. So depending on your, investment time horizon, if it's a long time horizon, you don't care how long this takes. You'll be fine. If you're more focused on the next decade or next 5 years, then you could drive a bus through different projections. Either way, this industry will grow to become a massive industry one day. We just don't know yet what that's going to look like, but it's coming.
Conclusion is the same, yeah.
Conclusion is the same, and you can see here that all the lines kind of converge in 2040. They all get to a massive industry market value. Who the winners are, we don't know, but that's where we're headed in the future as intelligent humanoid robots start to walk the earth.
Wow.
Yeah. So did I help you maybe gain a better understanding of the humanoid opportunity?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, we covered everything. The numbers are nutty still. I mean, that's still, the conclusion. The numbers are nutty, but that's because, labor costs can increase GDP through these bots with unlimited labor. Essentially, that's what it is, unlimited labor. And you're going to create an abundance. That's it. The only thing that comes to mind now is just what happens to humans at this point. It's like, if you have this many bots, what happens to the meaning of life? But I'm more optimistic. I think what would mainly happen is that, all these bots come in and they take like all these jobs. More people will have their own business in a way, and then they can have their own bots and they can find their own purpose that way. I am optimistic in that view. What I think will happen is that instead of doing things they don't want to do, they'll be doing things that they want to do. Yeah.
I think you're right. I think we have the opportunity to improve human existence for a lot of people that today live a pretty tough life, right? We have the ability to bring people up to, maybe not billionaire status in terms of, they're on a super yacht and all that kind of stuff, living that kind of lifestyle, but a very comfortable lifestyle where you don't have to slave away at your job just to make enough money to feed your family, right? And so that's an incredible opportunity. And I think that's something that we have the potential to really dramatically improve humanity in that way. Now, no doubt there will be some people where, they get displaced and there's some transitional challenges here. My view is that in the long term that we all kind of become almost like shepherds for our bots. So we won't be doing the work necessarily that we used to do. We won't have to wash the car and clean the house and do the dishes and fold the laundry. The bots will do that for us, but we are organizing and coordinating and it frees us up to maybe more creative stuff. I don't think we can sit here today and know what life will be like.
Yeah.
It'll change, right? Just like it always has for humanity throughout the ages.
All I know is I remember, well, I was too young, but I remember it was like, 2000, even before that, there were people saying like, oh, the internet is going to come and they're going to take our jobs. But then the internet came and gave so many more jobs and gave so many more opportunities. Like, for example, you can make money on X now. You can make money on YouTube. You can make money with all these social medias without leaving your own home. All you would need is an internet and a laptop and a phone, and you can literally become a millionaire if you really want to.
Yeah.
So I think it's a similar thing with bots with other ways of opportunity.
I agree.
That's how I view it. I think
it's very easy to sit here today and identify the jobs that will be lost. That's very easy. It's impossible to sit here today and identify the jobs that will be created in industries that don't exist.
Yeah, that's absolutely
right. Your social media example, for example, when the internet was first made, no one had a clue that was coming. YouTube and X and so on. So we're absolutely faced with the same situation with bots. However, it's different this time because these are intelligent bots, not just a machine. They will have the capability of virtually doing everything that we are capable of today at some point. And so in that sense, even the future jobs are at risk because the bots can do those too, potentially. But again, we don't know. And so we have to be humble about that and just say, you know what, we'll have to just sort of navigate this as it happens.
Yeah, I think for the intelligence part, there may have to be a cap on it, because if this becomes way too smarter than humans, I think it's going to be a big problem. But I don't know. We'll see how this happens. We'll see how this goes.
It'll be an exciting time.
Oh, man. A very exciting time. Wow. Well, sir, thank you so much for coming on. This was, now I'm more in line with the bot, with the robotaxi. Some of the stuff you went more details with, and even though you mentioned yourself, that's not even as detailed. It's definitely going to help me evaluate the robotaxi a bit better. And for the bot, now I know more of it. Now I know what to expect.
Well, it was all my pleasure, and I look forward to the next discussions.
Oh, that'd be awesome. That would be flipping awesome. And guys, follow Sir on X. He does these analysis very deeply and in depth. One of the best analysis that I've seen that goes over Tesla or just the robots and robotaxis. Sir, 100%. His link is in the description. And thank you so much, sir. And
thanks very much. My pleasure.
Definitely have another time once we have more details with the bots and the robotaxis. I'll definitely have you coming back for sure. This stuff is way too interesting.
I look forward to it.